What's good, YouTube? It's NativeReacts. Today we're going to be checking out top 10 animals that love being high. Original link in the description. Link for my merch in the description. Remember to like, subscribe, and join the tribe. Let's get right into it.
Let's get the easy ones out of the way and slowly work our way up to the worst.
What animals do you guys know that gets high? I know deer get high. I've heard some type of fish. They know the puffer fish gets them high or something like that. I'm not 100% sure.
Offenders on the list. Number 10, cats. This one is more of a misconception rather than an animal actually abusing a substance. If you have a cat, then you've more than likely tried giving them Nepeta, or better known as catnip. Now, this one is not really a drug like the others on the list and is actually an herb that is very closely related to mint. But it does contain a compound called nepetalactone, which can have a mild and temporary stimulant effect on some cats. And that's the thing with catnip. Some cats are affected by it and will go absolutely crazy for it, while others just remind you that you cannot buy their love and they still don't want anything to do with you. Now, catnip has many different effects on cats, but here are the most common ones. They will roll around in it. They will become very hyper after they ingest it, or they might just become very relaxed. Number 9, dolphins. This is another common one that most people have probably heard of. Everybody loves telling this story when they themselves are under the influence, so let's just get this one out of the way. Yes, it's true. Dolphins are the real menaces of the ocean and are despicable losers who love to get high. They do this by first surrounding a pufferfish and proceeding to take turns lightly biting on it. Not only will they nudge and bite the pufferfish, the pod of dolphins will take it a step further by launching him out of the water and playing catch with him, making sure that that pufferfish is completely traumatized for the rest of its existence. And as you can imagine, this causes the puffer to go into a full panic, triggering its defense mechanism, releasing a toxic poison called tetrodotoxin, which is one of the most deadly poisons in the world. To put it into perspective, one pufferfish has enough poison to kill 30 adult humans, or about 15 average-sized Americans. Now, even though it's deadly, dolphins have learned exactly how much of the poison they can tolerate without dying. They've actually been filmed passing the puffer around for 20 to 30 minutes at a time before letting it swim off. The effects that the poison has on the dolphins is pretty interesting. They seem to go into a euphoric state where they become very calm and relaxed, even being mesmerized and completely fascinated by their own reflection on the surface of the water. Number 8, birds. Okay, now we're getting to the ones that most people have not heard of, but have probably seen firsthand. Have you ever come across a dead bird that crashed into a window or building? And you sit there wondering, how is it possible that it had unlimited airspace to fly around in, and yet still managed to crash? Well, the truth is that it was probably flying under the influence. This usually happens after the first frost, which causes fruits and berries to ferment, producing ethanol, a type of alcohol. And of course, birds know this. They will then proceed to eat as much of the fermented fruit or berries as they can to get completely hammered. And in certain parts of the world, bird alcoholism is on the rise. Just look at Yukon, Canada, where they have built a sanctuary for birds that have had too much of the booze, which is basically a drunk tank for birds. Here, they are placed in tiny cages until they sober up, but as soon as they do, they are released back into the wild where they can continue boozing. So next time you see a bird that isn't flying straight, just remember, he's probably a degenerate good-for-nothing alcoholic. Number 7, honeybees. This one is similar to number 8, as most people probably won't know this one, but once you hear about it, you'll realize that you've come across it at one point in your life. Have you ever come across a honeybee that's crawling on the floor and doesn't seem to want to fly? As a kid, I used to think that this was because the bee had recently stung someone and is now dying a horrible and painfully slow death. But now as an adult, I am way more informed. Now, when I come across a crawling bee, I now know that it's either completely blocked out drunk or dying a horrible and painfully slow death. Number 6, fruit flies. Researchers at a San Francisco university have found that male fruit flies don't handle rejection very well. The research shows that when male fruit flies are rejected by a potential partner, they actually seek out alcohol.
Wow.
Who would have thought that I had so much in common with the fly? Number 5, vervet monkeys. Now this is the last animal on the list that belongs in an AA meeting. And the reason why they rank so high on the list is simply because they're not just alcoholics, but they are outright disgusting criminals. When these monkeys can't get their fix from fermented fruit, they turn to a life of crime, stealing alcohol from tourists. And they're damn good at it. They patiently wait in the shadows for the perfect opportunity, and the moment a person sets their drink down will be their first mistake. Because as soon as you look away, it's already too late. the monkey will have its greasy little hands on it and already slurping the alcohol down. They do have some of the coolest pictures though, so I'll give them that. Number 4, the black lemur. Now we're moving on from pufferfish and alcohol and moving on to the hard stuff. Okay, to be fair, pufferfish is pretty insane, but a lot of people already knew that one, so I put that at the top of the list. But let's move on, starting off with the black lemur. Who would have thought that these cute animals from the island of Madagascar would turn out to be such despicable and heinous creatures? The black lemur has a diet primarily
Sorry, I'm not saying much. I'm learning just like you guys are. I don't know these.
made up of fruit, but on occasion, it does love to consume a toxic combination of chemicals, which include cyanide. It's able to consume this when it finds a millipede and begins to lightly chew on it. This causes the millipede to curl up and release a toxic chemical that is meant to deter animals from eating it. But to the lemur, this chemical just signals to the boys that they're in for a wild night. Unlike the others on the list, there is actually one health benefit for getting their hands on this dangerous toxin. And after just one hit from the millipede, the lemur begins to drool uncontrollably. They then begin to rub the saliva and toxins all over their body to protect themselves from mosquitoes, which carry malaria. But don't think it's all business. The lemurs continue to take hits from the centipede, consuming more and more of the toxin until they are completely obliterated. It reaches the point that they are so high that the only option left is to sleep it off. Number 3, reindeer. Remember that little red mushroom from the Mario games? As I'm sure you've heard, its real name is Amanita muscaria, and it's insanely toxic and brings on some very intense hallucinations. But this doesn't seem to matter to the reindeer of Siberia, Russia, which actually go to great lengths to seek it out and consume it. Once it's ingested and the effects kick in, they begin to act in a very strange way. They end up running around aimlessly and begin making strange noises. But the reason the reindeer is so high on the list is simply because they are a bad influence on others. Apparently, humans watched them eat the magic mushrooms and they made it look so fun that we just had to try it for ourselves. Some people got incredibly high and began to have some of the most intense and vivid hallucinations, while others died.
Wow.
And instead of saying, you know what, we took an L on this one, boys, and we should probably avoid these mushrooms from here on out, no. Someone had the brilliant idea of consuming the urine of the reindeer instead, since he believed that the urine would sterilize the toxins but keep the effects of the mushrooms intact. And he was right. And after that, humans and reindeers could go on wild hallucinogenic trips together. Number 2, jaguars. I guess even an apex predator needs a break from killing and ripping other animals apart. They do this by seeking out the yage vine, which is one of the major ingredients when creating ayahuasca, arguably the strongest hallucination drug on earth. And once the cat consumes it and the effects kick in, they begin to turn into a big, goofy, intoxicated kitten. A clip from BBC caught this all on tape a few years ago, and it's pretty interesting to watch. The native people of the Amazon claim that the jaguars consume this drug since it heightens their senses, improving their ability to hunt. But they're in denial. The cat simply does it to discover things about the universe that he would otherwise not know. Like how Willy Wonka was a serial killer similar to Jigsaw, but instead of doing his experiments on adults, he would do them on children, and nobody ever batted an eye. Number 1, parrots. Now this one had to go last due to the severity of the situation. In northern India, these birds are so addicted to opium that the farmers have reported taking massive losses in revenue due to these birds alone. These farmers, who have special permission to grow the plant for medicinal companies, have tried everything under the sun to stop these birds from eating their plants. And it's not uncommon to see a parrot fly away with an entire opium pod to himself. Apparently, a single parrot will come down and take a bite of the opium milk 30 to 40 times a day. And the sad part is, since opium is a hard drug with very real consequences to health, the moment the parrots become addicted to it, they are as good as dead. Because as soon as the farmers harvest the plant, the birds are left with such horrible withdrawals that it ends up costing them their lives.
It's terrible.
And parrots falling from trees and electrical lines becomes a common occurrence. But it doesn't stop there. In the following year, once the farmers plant the next batch of opium, the vicious cycle starts all over again, like a never-ending nightmare.
I like that one. I just learned stuff the whole time. Let me know what you want reacted to down in the comment section. See you on the next one.